Hello. Lately, a lot of my friends and members of my congregation asked me to help them with their relationships. And in almost all of the cases, they wanted to know if there's a certain golden rule they can apply to their relationships that will let them know for certain that it will be a success. And in almost all the cases, I had to reply with, sorry, I don't know of such a golden rule. But there is a piece in the Bible in Luke 6 that can maybe help you with your relationships. That is with your wife, your husband, your kids, your colleagues at work. And this piece or this scripture reading in Luke 6 forms part of the sermon of Jesus Christ on the mountain. And in the previous verses, he says the following. He says, don't judge other people. Love your enemy. If someone strikes you on the cheek or the jaw, turn your other cheek. Thus implying that you shouldn't act according to your emotions. Think before you act. And then he says, forgive one another. Help one another. Reach out to one another. And then he comes to Luke 6, verse 46. And I'm somewhere going to read out of the Amplified Bible. And he says here, why do you call me Lord, Lord, and do not practice what I tell you? For everyone who comes to me and listens to my words and does them, I will show you what he is like. And then he compares it to a person building a house, who dug and went down deep and laid the foundation upon the rock. And when a flood arose, the torrent broke against that house and could not shake or move it because it had been securely built. But he who merely hears and does not practice doing my words is like a man who built a house on the ground without a foundation, against which the torrent burst, and immediately it collapsed and fell, and the breaking and the ruin of that house was great. Now every one of us are busy building on our future dreams. We are busy building our relationships. And normally when something goes wrong or doesn't work out, we put the blame on the water, the flood, the torrent. Just too great. The stress at work was just too much. That's why I ended my relationship. My wife's current and constant moaning all the time was just too much to bear. Can you hear? We normally put the blame on the flood. But what is interesting about the scripture reading? In both cases, the same flood and torrent and water and wind and storm broke on both houses. It wasn't different storms. But why could the one house withstand the storm? Could withstand the storm because that person was willing and able to do what God asks us to do. He was willing to do love. In John 3 verse 16, God says that He loved the world so much that He was willing to give His Son. A verb, give. And that give in the end means to serve, to respect, to forgive. Now the question is, are we willing to do love? We normally hear it in church and in the Bible, what we should do. But are we really willing to do that? If you are willing to do love in your relationship, if you are willing to respect one another, if you are willing to forgive one another, if you are willing to serve one another, the floods of the world can come running down and your house will be able to withstand it. But how does this love work? How How can I become able to do it? Only if you know what God did for you. Only if you know what God's love means. God's love is a love that is willing to do, to forgive, to respect, to serve. And when you become willing to do that love, no flood will be able to ruin your relationship. May you be willing to do love towards your husband, your wife, your children, your colleagues at work. Till next time.